We have the return of characters we once thought dead, others we haven't seen in the manga in nearly a decade, and much more to come in chapter 1117 of One Piece. So, let's start first with the title.
Mo.
Mo, M-O dash. It kind of just looks like an incomplete word, or we see later in the chapter itself that they also explain in the author's note that it could be the start of a word, or it could be the participle for the word also, but without context that doesn't really make any sense. So let's jump into the chapter itself instead to get a better understanding of this title.
And starting with the cover series, we again get a continuation of Yamato's journey, which still hasn't really began. She's still in the Flower Capital, and now she's meeting with Hyogoro, who is also with Nekomamushi.
And it would make sense that you see Neko joining with Hyogoro and the Yakuza when you kind of consider the way that he was running his own kingdom as the King of the Night on Zou, where it wasn't really like a huge civilization. It was more just like his gang of really highly skilled people, and they called him Master Cat Viper. So it's just kind of in theme with his character to fit in with this group. But that is enough for the cover series. I think we should jump into the chapter.
I agree. Starting on page 1, we begin in Hachinosu, where at this point most of the pirates are not only listening, but they're starting to get some ideas, considering all of the treasures beneath the sea and how it even is possible. And, you know, starting to consider maybe we should go look for it. Maybe we should try to take a shot at it.
But they're not really that boneheaded as some people are shouting out to go for it. They're making good points that not only is no guarantee that every city is going to have like all the riches of a city of gold, but also you have to go through all of the dangers of the sea kings and other sea beasts, that they even make the claim that you would have a better odd of courting the mermaids themselves.
And something that can be very easily skimmed over, I know I did it the first time before you stopped me and went, hold up, look at this, is the couple of people that we see in this panel.
And the most notable and the most clear cut that you can pretty much for sure say it's them is in the background you see what happens to be Pearl. And by going on that context of who Pearl's associated with, you look to the right side of the panel and you see what appears to be a man in plated armor that looks like a literate Don Krieg.
Yeah, or Kuma even.
And he kind of does look very much like Kuma in the face, which kind of throws you off too. Maybe he just chatted up over this time. But if that's Don Krieg and Pearl, that could also mean that the man right next to him is Gin, which we have not seen in like 1,088 chapters or something crazy like that. Oh my god, I was losing my mind when I saw that this was happening in the chapter. Not only does he look cooler, but the promises that he made to Luffy and Sanji where he's like, hey, I'll see you guys in the like Grand Line. I'll see you in the new world.
I would have kept those receipts. It's coming back.
But at the same time, during that scene where he gave away his gas mask and it pretty much seemed like he was gonna die, and it was just his nice way of sending him off. So somehow this man survived the poison.
He built different.
Came into the new world and is now surviving on Hachinosu. I need Gin back in the story now. I need them to meet in person. I'm so excited about that, but I can't spend too much time just rambling about it because there are some other people on this page that are pretty well suited for what the world is about to head into in terms of a age of exploration under the water, and that is the Sarayama alliance with Cricket, Shoujo, and Masura, who, if you can remember, is just a full team of divers and scavengers. I can't think of anybody better suited in this to go explore these ruins after finding out this news.
Then onto the Navy GS, being the general hospital of the Navy headquarters. We check in on Hibari, Kobe, Groose and company in the wake of Sword's mission to Hachinosu.
And clearly they're still in some rough shape. Even Kobe's covered in bandages, and Helmeppo is as well, but like Groose and Kujaku seem like they're fine. However, it is interesting on the bottom of that page to see that triple panel of Kobe, Groose, and Kujaku, and very much singling out those individuals from this group to kind of say, this is the next big three.
It's their turn to step up.
And Kujaku says that. Yeah, exactly. It's our turn to step up. So this is the new gens, Garp and Sengoku and Suru. They get to make the decision as to what the future of the Marines is going to look like, because they can't run from this truth anymore.
And sticking with the theme of seeing people we haven't seen in a while, we cut to another room in the same building where we see Drake in his own recovery wing after the events of Wano. He's being silent, but then we cut again to Smoker traveling across the water. And I think you said it's been almost a decade since we've seen him in the story.
I think it was like 9 years of publication since he's been in the manga again, and comes in with some style, I'm not gonna lie, because I always loved seeing his like billow bike that he was like, he rode that outside of Alabasta on the water, I believe. It's always just been a really cool part of him. I also, just as a fun piece of information, I'm pretty sure there are other things that have called it the Smog Hog, which is a pretty sick name for his motorcycle.
Yeah. Some Mad Max vibes.
But he's also giving off some Aokiji vibes, riding on the waters, like
definitely
giving into being Aokiji's student. And if you pay a little bit of attention to right behind him in the panel, you also see he is pulling a square of some sort, and that could be any number of things, but imagine if that's a poneglyph he's bringing back to the Marines. That would be crazy.
Which then you'd have to ask, where did he get it?
I mean, Jiinbei had a whole cover series. He just brought back his own. He just went on a side quest and came back with a poneglyph this time, which is perfect timing for the message. So, I don't know. I'd love for Smoker to be back into the story regularly again. I kind of miss when he was the Garp to Luffy of sorts.
Yeah, no. Big fan of Smoker. One of my favorite Marines. Would definitely be here for him making a regular return appearance in the near future.
However, jumping back to Egghead on page 4, we then check in on the Sunny, as it seems like they're pretty much ready to go. They have reached the end of the cloud road that extended, the barrier is now down, and all they gotta do is pretty much get Zoro and Jiinbei in a safe place to land, and they should be good to go. But should be easier said than done, because you see in the panel too, the water's just littered with ships right now.
Yeah. And also, Jiinbei and Zoro, while they're approaching very fast, they're not the only ones reaching the ship, which quickly hits ahead, as Nusjuro is also about to attack and probably just chop the Sunny in half the same way he did the dome.
It's what it looks like on the middle of that page. Also just a crazy scale for the size of the yokai form for Nusjuro, but also a gorgeous, gorgeous panel of what looks like he's preparing to slice the top off the Sunny. And in that same panel, they also make a very interesting comment about something being special about his presence. It's fun to speculate. Obviously, they were just fighting a Gorosei, so it's not like they haven't seen that kind of levels of hockey or power or anything like that. So maybe they're making a comment about the blade itself, because they've spent time around a Kitetsu blade on the ship with Zoro, and those are supposed to be cursed blades. So maybe they're getting some of that cursed energy that they're a little bit familiar with, and that's why it's special. But regardless, the rest of the crew got eyes popping out of their head. They've seen an elder. They're not in for a fun time.
Yeah, even Lilith is shocked, which, she at least probably has the understanding of who the elders are. But once you see one in person coming up on you like that, it hits different.
Luckily for them, though, Jiinbei and Zoro finally close enough that they can do something about it, but it takes a bit of a combo attack where you see upgraded versions of both of their previous attacks, with Jinbei's shoulder throw being upgraded this time into the Katugurama, where he just pretty much yeets Zoro like a Pokeball.
For real, though.
And then, of course, Zoro with his Nitoryu Urashoman, which is the same attack I believe he used to slice the train car in half when they were chasing down the sea train on the way to Enies Lobby. But again, he has his own upgrade to it, being the Sakavati's Blitz, with Sakavati being the land of peace in Buddhism. So he's really leaning into that King of Hell aspect against what is pretty much a King of Hell himself.
And as he collides with that King of Hell, it kind of seems like both of them have that moment of realization where they both see the other's Kitetsu blade and react as such. that speech bubble seems to be split evenly between the two.
It's so jagged, you definitely can't tell who it's coming from exactly. And it does kind of hark back to what I was just saying about, like, maybe they are drawing more focus to that, but confirming that this is, I believe, the Shodai Kitetsu, after it has been a theory ever since people have seen the hilt in the story. It's really cool to see a lot of these things paying off, but in the wake of that, you see this explosion as both Nusjuro and Zoro are thrown back, too. But luckily, Jiinbei is also pretty good at playing catch. He's a really dad of the year.
Yeah, no, he's just been keeping Zoro grounded, literally and figuratively, throughout this entire arc.
But Zoro does have his own kind of vice captain moment. He tells the crew immediately, like, you guys go. You guys gotta go. Don't worry about him. Jiinbei and I are gonna be fine. We'll figure out a way off of here. We'll jump off, but you guys gotta launch. And so they're pretty much ready to go. And you jump to the other ship with the giants, and it seems like they're also pretty much ready to take off now.
And as Luffy's voice cuts through the fire and all the madness to the shoreline and the crew, we get to see a lot of really cool action from specifically the giants, especially when it comes to their designs in the panel that we haven't really seen from them before.
Yeah, I mean, we mostly kind of keyed in on Oimo, Kashi, Dory, and Bragi. There was a couple as they were landing, but like this huge panel of just seeing how massive these giants are, just crawling out of the ship to attack the other ships. It's really cool. I really like the variety you see in a lot of them, but honestly my favorite is kind of off on the side in one of his own smaller panels where he has the twin pistols, and you can only imagine how much damage a handcrafted firearm for giants of Elbaf can do.
Oh, insane amounts. And it kind of makes sense that despite Guillotine telling them not to fear these, as he puts it, fossils being the giants, the Marines are very understandably terrified and, for a moment, underwhelmed by their presence. But then we finally get some true hype and level playing field from the Vice Admirals, with Bluegrass finally entering the scene and finally giving us not only an impactful attack, but also an impactful quote.
Absolutely. I mean, this is honestly the quote I think I hung on the most, besides Vegapunk's announcements itself, but her coming in and reminding all of these Marines, you're all meant to be paragons of justice, remember? Don't settle for being another face in the crowd. Step up and be a star. That's beautiful.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
I mean, it's not even just good for them. That's just good advice, too, in general, to kind of challenge yourself to be more than you think you can. Don't just be another face in one of these panels. And then she follows up and delivers on what she's saying by punching a hole in the side of their ship. I just like the wordplay, too, where they say, oh, she punched a hole in the hole.
Yeah, and then right after that, we get Doll coming in and knocking Kashi off the ship, leading into the next page, which, shout out to both of them. They got some serious firepower.
It's probably the best Vice Admiral moment since, like, Momonga didn't get turned into stone. So, it's been a low bar for Vice Admirals for a while, but it's good to see them finally getting some action. But like you said, on the next page, we see Kashi falling towards the water, and that combination of inspiring and then acting on it really seems to inspire all the other Marines and just turned around their attitude. However, as this is happening, we cut to the approaching trio of Luffy, Dory, and Bragi, and you can't see Luffy's not in Gear 5 anymore, which is interesting because they're also commenting about where Warcurry seemed to have disappeared to.
Yeah, and we find out pretty quick where he went to. All of the Gorosei, aside from Ethan, have now flanked the Iron Giant and are basically gearing up to attack in what is a pretty ominous panel of the four spread out next to one another.
And they're pretty lucky that this is when they happen to finally pull up on him, because it's at the same time Vegapunk's starting to talk about those with the will of D and trying to reach out to them. So as soon as they kind of realize, oh, okay, the message is getting that important, and also, don't we know this robot from somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only reason they didn't act sooner, is that moment of, we see it especially from Mars, where he goes, wait a minute, this is that robot, the same one that attacked Marijoa 200 years ago. He has to stop and reflect on that, but then, right back, they hear what Vegapunk starts to talk about, which is those around the world with the name D.
And hearing that is all they needed to jump into action. You see a like zoomed in frame next to Vegapunk there as they just scream curse you. They're charging in. But before they get a chance to reach that robot, we do see a couple faces that know a thing or two about the Will of D.
Yep, we get another stoic shot without any actual dialogue out of Dragon.
Triple dots.
Then we get Sabo exclaiming first Ace and then Luffy.
And Kobe also remembering Luffy, but also thinking about that same Monkey D family, talking about Vice Admiral Garp. And that leaves us with the dastardly Marshall D. Teach, who we finally see I don't know if we've seen his face during this arc or gotten his reaction to anything besides like what was happening around Hachinosu, but luckily we also see our boy Beppo, who's calling out for Captain. And seeing that bandage on his cheek just gives me so much hope.
It really does seem like he did pull off the escape successfully. Although we haven't seen Law or what condition he is in, it does seem that Beppo is okay. You would assume that if he was under captivity again, if the Blackbeard Pirates had caught up to him, he wouldn't be standing like that. He wouldn't be bandaged like that. So hopefully they found some sort of refuge, maybe even some help.
Fingers crossed they found their way back to Zoe. But that does take us into the final page of this chapter, and here we see some pretty cool artwork also of Warkery making an impact with the Iron Giant. And as he does so, you see the dialogue from the announcement cut off as he starts to address them he was starting to say, those amongst you with the Will of D, and then all he manages to get out is Mo.
Which, as the translation tells us, this could mean any number of words that were began and just cut off, or it could actually be the particle for also.
However, we don't really get a chance to know, because thanks to Warkery sending the Iron Giant essentially into the sky and crashing down, all you hear is the fzzz, no matter every person reacting to it, from Vivi to those watching the screen, which you now see is in static, so you can tell the message has been disrupted. Every one of them is just sitting there listening to this, and it seems like the announcement has finally ended.
And we close with a shot of York falling to her knees in what seems to be a relief, exclaiming, "It's over," which, at least for her, is a positive in some regards.
She's still probably going to get blamed, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot was already spilled, but, you know, we still got some holes.
And you also see the words in the bottom of that panel saying, words that echoed in vain. Couldn't even manage to get it out because the message has now ended prematurely. Or so we would think, because that does make me want to bring up some sort of reflective question. We do see that the transmission has kind of been jammed on the screen, on the sounds no longer continuing. However, it doesn't look like the Iron Giant has been destroyed. So unless Warkery used like some Rio internal damage to just get the Denden Mushi, I think it's worth asking, is it officially over, or do we think it might pick back up at some point?
So my overall thoughts would be that the Denden Mushi, or the transmission snail that was sending that broadcast, is probably beyond repair, so I would think it's done. But I wouldn't put it past Oda to suddenly have the transmission start back up. If it did, I feel like whatever he was saying would have continued while the transmission was down, so we would still have that gap and have that incomplete statement that we didn't hear.
I think I agree. I think it's more likely that it's going to be over now. The Gorosei kind of needed a win at this point. They've spent a lot of chapters figuring out where it even was. And this does seem like a good point to leave it off, because it seems like we're pretty much just going to be getting out of here for the next couple chapters. But that does also leave us with another point to discuss, being the possibilities for what Mo could have been. And I can start on this one, because the one thing I immediately wanted to think about, as their names were brought up multiple times during that panel, was the Monkey D clan, and whether or not he was willing and able to pick out that these were pretty special individuals. Maybe they're even the direct descendant of Joy Boy's lineage.
Which, with him learning about Joy Boy and already conveying Joy Boy's existence to everyone in this broadcast, it could really be that he found something more about his descendants.
But it's also worth considering something like the word more. More could open up possibilities for anything, but if he's talking about their name, he could be saying there's more to your name. Or more of you that even realize you have this in your name, like Vivi, who very likely does, considering Lily was a secret D.
Exactly. And then, even if it is also, that again leaves just so many possibilities. With it could be followed by any amount of unknown hidden piece of lore, or history, or further explanation of what the true meaning of D really is.
However, we don't really have to wait that long because no break this coming week.
Let's go.
But we do want to leave you with the question because we can't seem to figure it out. What word do you think Mo was going to be before Vegapunk's transmission was cut off? We want you guys to let us know down in the comments below what your ideas for it were, or if you think it just was going to be also, but let us know what ideas you have in your mind, because this is going to be our speculation for the next week. And if you guys want to come back for more videos like this in the future, make sure you like this video so more people can watch it. We really appreciate all of the attention you guys have been able to help us get on some of our recent videos. So make sure you come back, subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future, and don't forget, as always,
be crew.